Hey guys, it's the one and only VocaRose, and today I'm bringing to you something a little different, cause it's kind of a story time thing. If you follow me on Twitter, you already know the title I've given this. I've named it the car arc, and the reason for that is because it's my adventure of trying to get my first car. So without further ado, have a seat and enjoy the story. About 2 weeks ago, I don't think you'll see this, my stepdad messaged me and asked if I wanted a car. Obviously I was gonna say yeah, right? Like, it's a vehicle. But the thing was, I haven't talked to him in a long time. And the reason for that is he's very, I guess you can say in his own world. Because when he says something, that's it. There's no arguing, there's nothing else. His view is the right view, there's no other view, and I don't necessarily agree with that, and when it comes up in that situation, we kind of argue. But anyway, I think about it for a bit because, of course, I want the car, but do I want to deal with anything that comes with this car, and what kind of car? Like, all you're saying, do you want a vehicle? So I think, yeah, he probably wouldn't try to screw me over, right? So I say eventually, I think it was like an hour later, I say, sure, I would like a car. Yeah. So I don't hear from him the rest of the night. And that was concerning, cause why? But then the next morning, I believe around like 8 or 9 a.m., I get a phone call from him and he's like, hey, so here's what's going down. I found a car for you, but it's kind of a used car, and I was already kind of turned off by that, like a used car, but be that it would be my first car again, it can't be too bad. So he tells me that it would be a used car and he was gonna go there on that day, which I believe was a Saturday or a Monday. It was one of the two, because I remember I was doing schoolwork the night before. So I'm like, okay, what kind of car is it? You're not telling me anything besides you're gonna get a car. So then that's when his mind pops in, oh wow, I never told what kind of car it was. And the first thing I hear, oh, it's a Honda Accord. Okay, cool. Now, I don't know anything about cars, and I haven't learned anything until I started going on this car adventure. So I'm like, it's a Honda Accord, whatever, great, but it's a car, so as long as it works. And I hear, yeah, but the thing is, and just like that, my excitement was dead. So he goes on to say, the thing is, it's kind of wrecked, and my world died again. You're trying to buy me a wrecked vehicle. Why? Why are you doing this? But then he goes and he's like, oh, but no, it's not that badly wrecked. It's kind of just like a dent, a small dent. You won't notice it. And I'm like, well, again, it's a first car. And then he also was putting that in my head that, oh, don't worry, this is just your first car. You'll get a better one when you get out of college and everything. You'll be able to get your perfect car. So with this and that, I'm like, fine, whatever. So then I go and I talk to my mom about it, and she's like, well, yeah, it is your first car, so can't be perfect. A little dent or two wouldn't be that crazy. Then I'm starting to hear these weirder things, and I believe it was from my sister. My sister is like, but then he told me that the car also has either a very damaged fender and bumper, or it has none at all. So now I'm done. That was about the time I wasn't having fun anymore. But I was like, well, does he have another? Yeah, that's what it was. It had one, but it was messed up in color. It was a different color from the rest of the car. So I'm like, well, that's kind of ugly, I can assume, because I still haven't seen the car, mind you. I only got to see the pictures that my stepdad told me to look on Google of not the same car. It was the car type, but it wasn't that car. So I'm just looking at Honda Accords. I don't even know the year yet, mind you. So I think it was this day that I decide maybe I should ask the year of what I'm looking for. And so I call him and he's like, oh, it's an 07. Yeah, it's good. Oh, okay. It's an 07. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, well, cool. Let's look it up since you don't want to send me anything. So then I kind of caught the idea I'm kind of being an idiot now, because why am I not asking him? I'm kind of rushing through this whole process, and I'm not asking the questions that I should be asking. So I'm like, hey, can you by chance send me a picture of the car before you buy it? And he's like, well, we'll see what I can do, because I don't necessarily know how to take pictures on this phone. So I didn't get any pictures of the car. But I kind of had given up on the car for a little because of the color thing that I was told about. I just kind of wanted to see the car before I made any kind of rash decisions. Because what if the paint wasn't that bad, right? Like, and it was something actually still not ugly. And I kind of just said no. So I go to bed, I wake up, and I kind of got woken up by my mom. And she's like, hey, listen. So the car was bought. But the guy who was selling the car is offering another car, but more expensive. So I'm like, okay, so maybe this car is better since it's more pricey. Maybe it'll have like all kinds of better things than the 07, right? Surely. And now I'm told I have to go there. So I finally get to see a car, like, before I make any decisions of buying it. And my sister was gonna bring me. So I get dressed, all of that stuff. I get in my sister's car and we go and we talk and we're just kind of having a good time until we get there and we see my stepdad. And he's already kind of like looking somewhat annoyed. And then we find out this car is at someone's house and I'm uncomfortable because I don't really trust people, especially in a pandemic. I don't really trust anybody. So we get there. And like I said, he's looking upset, but he's not upset. So we do our greetings and how you been, because again, we haven't talked in forever. Now, I'm looking at the car that is gonna be mine. And on the outside, it's a very pretty car. It has a sunroof, and I never had a car with, like, I've never really been in a car with a sunroof. So this is all kind of just like exciting to me. But the thing with me was I kind of didn't look in the car as good as I should have. And I'm going to explain that to you in a minute. The guy who's selling the car pulls up in like this, I don't even know what type of truck it is, but it's looking dirty and old. So I'm like, okay, that's not too bad. He gets out of the car, hey man, and I'm like, okay, no. I couldn't understand a word he was saying. He had that very... He was very much about like a seller. He could have done it. He was good at making things sound better than they were. So we look in the car, because now I'm finding out this one that we're buying right now is an 05. So it's 2 years older than the one we were originally gonna buy because the other one is gone. We'll get back to that also in a minute. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, I like it. And then we get in, like, we open the door to the car and now I'm like seeing this brown color that I don't like. But I didn't look deep in the car again as I should have until we decide to get in the car and do a test drive. Now, I'm not gonna test drive this car because I don't know what I'm dealing with. So my stepdad decides he's gonna test drive it and my sister is gonna be in the back seat. Before we even get in the car, I'm kind of sensing this weird thing, like this uncomfortable, very uncomfortable thing. And I'm like, yeah, maybe this ain't the car, but I kind of want to experience it anyway. Now, before we leave, I hear I keep wanting to say the buyer, the seller say, oh yeah, and if you want to look at the 07, it's in the parking lot of a blank place, like a certain place. But I was told this morning that the car was bought and gone. But whatever. We opened the passenger side door to the 05 car so I can get in and we can go on our test drive. There is a huge brown spider waiting for me in the freaking seat. And I mean, this spider was not looking away. It wasn't somewhere far from me. Me and the spider made eye contact, and there was no way I could be convinced that this spider did not know I was trying to get into this car. So the car is now not something I want, and I'm pointing and I'm like, sis, help, I can't do this. I'm opting out of this fight. She looks at me, I'm not killing it either, so you're kind of having to do it. I get to this and I'm like, I'm gonna have to kill it because I might want this car. So I stomp on this spider, and just like in my childhood, which is gonna be a whole different story if I ever tell it, this was the reason why I feared bugs to begin with. I stepped on a bug when I was a child and it tanked it. This spider got stomped on by me and it survived. I shit you not, I stomped on this thing twice and it was moving still. And I made sure that it was on the hard part of the car. It was no longer on the seat. I stomped it twice and it took it like it was nothing. I was done with this car. I was done. I didn't want it anymore. I hated everything. I hated the trip, the 30-minute trip, and I wanted to go home, but couldn't go home. So I looked at my stepdad and I kind of screamed, there's a spider here. I can't do nothing about it. So he comes to the passenger side. He takes his shoe off entirely and he smacks it. He doesn't smack it once. He doesn't smack it twice. He smacks it like 5 times and then it dies. It dies after the 5th time and I'm not even sure it died. That's how bad it was. Because it kind of just did that thing where spiders do when they fake being dead and then it just kind of rigor mortis into the freaking back of the seat or something. I don't know. But now it's time to get in the car. I get in the car and it's the ugliest thing I've ever seen. The brown, I thought the car was brown. I don't even think it was brown. I think the color just kind of died away. It was dirty in that car, man. Like it was bad. It was the ugliest car I've ever seen on the interior. I honestly felt sick. So I try to get the seatbelt on. The seatbelt's dirty and it won't even go back up. So I'm like, okay, I'll put the seatbelt on, but like I'm not touching the seat. I'm gonna sit here, but I'm not gonna lean back. I'm not gonna do none of that. Now it's time for the drive, and the steering wheel is unlocked. And if you don't know what that means if you hold the steering wheel, if you move upwards with your hands, the steering wheel is gonna move up. If you move down, it's gonna move down, and it's not supposed to do that when you're driving. So that's a scary thing for me because I don't understand cars again. And now my stepdad decides, okay, let's test the horn. He pushes the button. Well, he pushes the horn. Nothing comes, nothing. And he's like, we didn't even get down the road. He's like, yeah, let's turn back. We don't want this. And I'm like, thank you. So we get back. We tell him everything wrong. He's like, oh no, it's nothing. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Then I look up and I'm seeing this bolt on the sunroof. And my sister's like, what's that? And he's like, oh no, that's nothing. I can just unscrew that. But that's there for a reason. I feel like if you unscrewed that, the sunroof would either fall or die. And the car really smelled like it was kind of drowned in water or something. So then my stepdad's like, can we just go see the 07 since you said that's not bought? And he gives us the key and we go to the parking lot where he said it is. Now, on the way there, I look at my stepdad and I'm like, you've driven this 07 before, right? Everything's good with this one, right? Because I'm already sick, I'm still disgusted, and I don't even want to be involved with this car anymore. I don't want to be involved with a car anymore, but this one might be the one. And so he's like, yeah, I kind of didn't drive it myself, but someone else drove it with me in the car. And I got mad again. Why didn't you drive it? But I ignored it. We get to the car, and from far away, it was the most, it was so beautiful. Like I could have married that car. Like I was in love the moment I saw it from far away. But then we got closer and I started seeing these wrecks they were talking about. Like I started seeing all these damages on the car. Also, the fender, it was not a different color. So I was kind of like, I've been lied to, or they fixed it. And I'm sitting here and I'm looking at this, and it is again the most beautiful car until we get close. And now I'm starting to see the damages. There's something hanging from the bottom of the car. The passenger side door is so wrecked in that some of the doors poking out. The fender and the door are fighting amongst each other. The passenger side door are fighting amongst each other to see who will win this epic grand battle. But whatever, right? Maybe it's drivable. Again, everybody keeps telling me this is your first car, don't worry about it. So we get out of my stepdad's car and we go to unlock this car. The door doesn't unlock. The key the guy gave us was the wrong key. So now we gotta go back, tell him the wrong key. He's like, no, it's the right key. I'm certain it's the right key. And then they go for a back and forth argument before finally we go back to the car. He sees it's the wrong key. He leaves. He's like, I'll be back with the right key. He brings back a huge ton of keys. At this point, I'm like, maybe this car isn't his. He uses every key. None of them work. He leaves to go make a key, and he left for 4 hours. And when he comes back with the new key, the key doesn't work. So I'm kind of convinced maybe he's about to hurt us. So I go in my sister's car because she also brought her car after this. We went back to get her car, and now we're just all chilling here with both my stepdad's car, sister's car, and what's supposed to be my car. And now I'm staring at it, and the more I think about it, the more I kind of don't like this adventure anymore. And I'm kind of like, I kind of dropped my homework to experience this, and I kind of hate myself for it. But then the weirdest thing happens, and I don't know. I think you could rival this with the spider itself. The guy finally comes back, and he comes back with a crew. And I'm like, okay, maybe they have a key, but I don't know why I thought that. I guess I was just hopeful at this point. I was hot. I was bored. I don't know. They get like this, I don't even know, a jack, and they start pop-a-locking into the car. And I'm watching this, and I'm like, oh my God, they're doing this in a public area. This really isn't not this man's car. I don't want it. This is scary as fuck, okay? I hate it here. But they finally get it open. Here's the funny part of this. They open the door, and I noticed it from the beginning, but there was another car there that just was sitting there in the parking lot with us, facing us. I stayed in the car. I stayed in my sister's car because I was not going to deal with whatever was happening amongst us. I wanted nothing to do with it. The car leaves once they start the car. Once the car is started, this Honda Accord, they leave. So I'm convinced they were trying to see if these people were breaking into the car or not. And I'm glad I didn't do anything, or I didn't even know what was happening most of the time until I had to put the context clues together. Because I, again, wanted nothing to do with that, and I feel smart now that I stayed in the car. But anyway, the car started. My stepdad tells me and my sister, let's go, we're gonna test drive this car. I shit you not. The key that is in the car is the car keys that he gave us to begin with. So it was the key for the car, it just doesn't unlock the door. So that's not good. I have to keep the car door unlocked if I get this car. But anyway, now I'm going to be the passenger again and let my stepdad be the driver. I go to open the passenger side door, and again, the fender is not letting me do that. The fender is still in this epic war with this door, and they're like, you think you're gonna let this man in? No. It was stressful. I finally get the door open, which I must say, imagine having a door that's with a crack in it. A crack of a door when you're just kind of, I guess you can say like you have your room door open, but you only have a piece of it open, like not even 50% open, like 20%. That's what I had to slide into to get in this. And when I sit in the car, it's the prettiest car interior that I've ever seen in a long time, and very appealing for a used car. So I'm like, fuck the door. Not many people are gonna get in with me anyway, so this might be it. I got to drive the car too, and I loved it. Everything was good with this car. But then, guess what? When we went back to look at the car door, The door had won the war, okay? Because the fender is now halfway out, and I don't want this car anymore. My stepdad kind of walks to the guy who was sitting here this entire time, not in the car with us. He was sitting in his rusty truck, waiting for us to come back into the parking lot. He just kind of is like, so do you want the car or not? And my stepdad's like, listen, here's what we'll do. The guy's like, no, I'm done listening. Do you want the car or do you not want the car? And then I find out the price of the car. And I'm kind of insulted by this because, as you may know, if you have a car or if you ever gotten a car, we're in 2020. You can't get a car for like cheap anymore without some huge ass defects. My stepdad was gonna pay for this car $3,500, and I was shook because even though that's, you know, not a lot for a car, especially like used cars these days, you know, I've seen cars that are like 8,000, but for this, like for the things on this car, it's not worth 3,500. I'm sorry. It's just like all the things that, like the door, and it's just, I don't know. It's like you'd have to do more repairs, and I believe like there was something else wrong with it too that I just can't remember. So what my stepdad's plan was to give the guy like $800 on the car, and then when he fixed everything, then he would give him the rest, and the guy wasn't having that. So then my stepdad does the dumbest thing ever. He pulls out $3,000 and he's like, look at it, I had the money right here. And I'm like, oh my god, he's actually showing this dude the money. And I'm in my mind, I'm like, what if the guy clocks him right now and just takes the 3,000? Do I lose or what? But the guy didn't. He's just kind of like, yeah, the car will sell, blah blah blah. We go home without a car, and that was kind of how that went. And there's more to this story, but this video is already long as hell as it is, so there's gonna be a part 2. But I just kind of want to ask you guys, would you spend $3,500 on a car that has a door that doesn't work? Both doors, mind you, because the passenger side has that big fender door war going on, along with the key not unlocking the driver's side door. So like, would you do all of that? Would you buy that along with, you know, the other thing that I just can't remember was wrong? Is that worth $3,500 to you? And the other question I'll leave with is, would you spend more on the car that had all the other issues? The previous 05 car that I told you about, would you buy that for more than $3,500 as well? If you would, more power to you. If you wouldn't, I understand. But that'll do it for today's video. Expect a part 2. It might go to a part 3 or 4. I don't know. We'll see how everything goes. But until next time, guys, see you all later.